I have the biggest smile on my face, and that's what happens every time I find out that I've stumbled upon a bit of a hidden gem, a product that's so good that it's just an easy recommend. This is the Sony ULT Field 1. ULT because it has an Alt button, but honestly, I don't know why they couldn't just name it Field 1. Now, this is an outdoor focused speaker with the IP67 rating, and this bit over here, that's fabric. It is coated with this hydro repellent thing, so it repels water. It comes in multiple colors. White would probably be not the best option for something that's made of fabric, but you can, wash it off with a wet cloth if you want to. Just a note, the IP67 rating is with this flap closed. If you open the flap, and that's a chunky flap, I might say, there's a USB-C charging port, but more on that in a bit. This for 2025 is a little bit anemic on the feature side. It does come with an app. The app has EQ control and a couple of other things. You can pair this with another speaker and use them as a stereo pair, for example. It doesn't have wireless streaming, which is not a deal breaker for me, but it also does not have multi-point, which I think is a little bit of a missed opportunity because it does have a microphone. You can take calls on this thing. In fact, you're listening to it right now. I've got the speaker here. You're listening to the microphone of the Sony ULT Field 1. And while I've got you here, yeah, I wish they had multi-point because it would have been cool to swap between the laptop and the phone for phone calls. That's not the only little thing, though. There's a few quirks we should talk about. One is you've got this this grab handle. I don't know why you would use that, why we wouldn't just hold the thing, but, that's okay. I don't mind it. The other is the battery life. Now, in the manual, it says you can get up to 12 hours on a single charge. However, if you look closely, that's at 25% volume, albeit with the alt mode on. I know you want to know about the alt mode. We'll talk about it shortly. But realistically, you're going to get, 50% volume, which will get you between 6 and 9 hours. Somewhere around 7 hours is what I'm guessing most people will get. So not the greatest. Not the end of the world, but not the greatest. Here's another quirk, though. When you go to charge the thing, they give you a cable, right? In their own manual, they say that the cable is rated for 1.5 amps. This speaker can take up to 3 amps. So why on earth, Sony, would you include something that is that is less than the capability of the speaker? Why not just put a 3 amp rated cable in there? I don't understand why. But if you do get a cable that's rated for 3 amps, you can charge it a lot faster than otherwise. Just saying. I mean, it's a pretty bare bones speaker. It doesn't do very much, but it does a couple of things that I think are far more important than all those fancy features, and that is the sound. Okay, so controls wise, you've got the power button, you've got the Bluetooth button, all very standard. You can imagine how that works. The play and pause button is where you can accept and reject calls, plus or minus for volume, and the alt button. The way this works is it's got its speakers up here. It's not omnidirectional, it's got all the speakers up front, and it's got passive radiators on either side for bass. Now, when you talk about a speaker, what is it that you're actually looking for? For me, number one, it must have a well-tuned frequency response. So nice even mids, nice even treble, no exaggeration of treble to make it sound like you've got quality when there really isn't one. And it has to have bass that is not necessarily boosted too much, but at least it shouldn't be anemic, right? No one wants anemic bass, let's face it. To show you how good this speaker is, I've made some measurements. But before that, this is a public services announcement. When you see measurements of speakers or speaker reviews that are done indoors anywhere, pinch of salt. Multiple pinches of salt, including my own, because what a lot of people don't realize is when you listen to a speaker, you're not listening to just the speaker. It's always, and I mean always, the speaker coupled with the room makes a system in total, because the room has massive effects on the sound, and I cannot specify this and I cannot emphasize this enough. Massive effect on the sound, and you have to look at the totality. If I was just talking about the speaker, and if I told you, hey, in my room it sounded like this, it means nothing to you. It might be completely different in your room. So, what do I do to get past that? Well, first of all, I don't just take one measurement. I take a measurement in front of the speaker, off to the sides of the speaker, I average some measurements out, then I take the speaker in different positions in the room and in different rooms, like at least 2 different rooms, middle of the room and against the wall, and then I look at all my readings together, then I see what's common. Because whatever's not common is the influence of the room, the distance from the back wall, and whatever else furniture might be around it. Whatever is common is most likely just the speaker. And what I found was that for the most part, in the mids, this thing is tuned beautifully. Mids are really nice, really even, and tuned within plus or minus 2 to 3 dB. If you're just sort of keeping this in the middle of the room or in the middle of an open, like over here, out in the open, there's no back wall, there's nothing to reflect it. Mids are going to sound pretty even, as long as it's a little off the table, of course. What I did notice was that as you're listening to it head on, there's a little bit of extra treble, just a little bit. However, when you go off axis, so if I was listening to it head on, mids would be nice and even, the treble would be slightly higher. Not crazy, not like I've seen many other speakers do, but a little bit higher. If I go off axis, which you're likely to listen to this off axis, you're just going to keep this somewhere on a side table, you're going to go sit by the pool, or you're going to go sit at home in your room, you're not going to be directly in front of it. Or if you are, then turn it off to a side a little bit, not much, just a little bit, and the treble comes in line with the mids. And the effect is, it's not the greatest resolving speaker in the world, but man, the tonal balance is pretty much where I personally think it's fantastic. You know, they tell me I should ask you to subscribe and like about here in the video, but I actually think you're going to do it anyway, because this next part I'm excited about, because this is such a good speaker, but I'm going to show that to you with measurements. So yeah, I think you'll hit that subscribe button when you feel like it. You'll remember. When it comes to the bass, and I could nitpick at this point and say between 1 and 2 kilohertz, there's a little bit of a recess that shows up no matter where the speaker is. Those are small things and you can hear them, but I think big picture that doesn't matter for this kind of speaker, so I'm not going to get into that. What I will get into is the bass, because we all love good bass. Here's the thing about small speakers. At low volumes, most small speakers will give you a reasonable amount of bass, but not deep sub bass, because you just can't do it. Especially when you're not listening to it from 3, 4, 5 feet away, you're not going to get that. One way to get around it is put it near a wall, and the wall actually boosts up some bass frequencies. With this one, at lower volumes, this has a reasonable amount of bass. However, at higher volumes, it drops the bass down. Again, this is true for all compact portable speakers, but in this case, not only does the bass go down, the lower mids go down. And the effect is that vocals, they sound very clear, but they sound a little anemic. Like a deep voice, it won't sound like as deep a voice, and therefore it does not sound natural. However, that's where the alt button comes in. And at first I thought, you know what, this is going to be a bass boost button. We've seen it before. It's going to muddy everything up. It's going to mess everything up, and it's going to just ruin the sound. But that's not the case. Now, again, if you press the alt button and keep it near a wall, it is possible to muddy up the sound. But generally, in this setting, and in most settings in room as well, pressing the alt button is what I would 100% recommend at almost all volume levels. Because what it does is bring up those lower mids and bring up the bass, but it doesn't overemphasize anything. Even the bass, I mean, it's boosted, but not to the point where it makes everything muddy. And man, does it sound good. I was watching a movie just last night, Dune Part 2, and this is a mono speaker. And I turned off the lights and I just left the speaker on the table and just watched the movie. That movie, by the way, has incredible sound design, superb, and it's on Netflix. But this thing was awesome, genuinely awesome. Now, some parts of the room where it takes away from that mid-bass punch, that would be a problem. That's not the speaker, that's where you place it in the room. But generally speaking, most places I could keep it. The bass was pretty much on point for a small portable speaker. Again, no deep rumbly sub bass, but good, solid, punchy, weighty bass. And vocals just had that nice bit of warmth without being muddy. Everything sounded reasonably natural. Treble effects were there without being overemphasized. It's pretty good. In fact, it is very good. To contrast this, let's compare it with something like the Sonos Roam 2 or the JBL Charge 5, both of which I have reviewed on this channel. They're interesting speakers. You should go check out those reviews when you get a chance, but this one's just better. The Sonos Roam 2 is smaller and doesn't have the bass performance, so that needs to be up against a wall. This, the alt button. That alt button does a surprisingly good job of adding bass without adding muddiness, and it just gives you a lot more, and it gives you the same kind of nice even mids like the Sonos Roam does. So this is even better. This is just better. Now the JBL, one would argue, has even more bass in places, but that bass is more uneven in my experience than the Sony Field Alt 1 or Alt Field 1. You know what I'm talking about. Because hear me out. You get something that's IP67 rated. You get something that actually sounds good no matter where it is. You get a bass boost button that actually, honestly, that's the default. You should just have Alt on all the time, in my opinion. That's the better sound. But you can pair it with another speaker and have a speaker pair. You have a microphone, you can take calls. There's a fair bit of functionality, robustness, and I think it looks quite nice, especially in orange and forest gray. Really nice colors. You should go check them out. The thing is, you get all of that for under $100. Where I live in the UAE, you get it between $80 and $95 retail now, which is wild. I think this may be the best sort of budget portable speaker I've come across so far. And going by the characteristics of the sound alone, it's just good, and I'm quite happy to recommend it. In fact, I would even recommend you subscribe and like this video because, I have to. But I appreciate the value and the custom. If you become a member of this channel, you stand to have giveaways. I'm not sure I want to give away this one, but maybe I will. But I'll probably give away the JBL. Why not? But I do give away lots of other stuff. I just gave away a pair of IEMs in the previous video, and who knows what will come next. Above all else, I hope I see you in the next video. Stay happy, stay peaceful, stay colorful. Namaste.